it was interesting to watch this film after we've spent, discussed 3 seasons of The Chosen,
right,
over the past couple of years.
Right.
And we've talked about the pros and cons of expanding the gospel accounts, which are usually kind of terse, and compact. And I kind of feel like this film gets the best of both worlds in so many ways, because it does expand on things and add little details, but not in a way that it feels like they're taking a ton of poetic license for the most part. And it still maintains that compact power of the gospel stories. I mean, this film is clocking in at 88 minutes. It's just under an hour and a half. It gets a lot in, kind of going from the baptism of Jesus with a couple of flashbacks to like the nativity and the finding of Jesus in the temple, things like that, on through the resurrection. I would say my only complaint is I think the passion was too compact. I think they could have done a little more with that, but overall, this film covers an amazing amount with plenty of emotional impact. Yeah. And if I can just say, like I could see this film becoming a regular family viewing in a way that I wouldn't want to do with The Chosen. I think you were talking about why is it animated, and it also struck me that this is not iconographic in style, but it is iconographic in the sense that this animation allows us to, it can be realistic in some ways without being like straight up like cinematic realism, it just allows you to do these compact gospel scenes in a way I can't describe it because
Is it kind of like you don't have to you give the film a little bit more leeway to do its own thing because it's animated, and so it's at some level a bit of an abstraction or something and so you don't feel as offended if it goes astray.
I think it's that actually my imagination is engaged in a way that it's not when I'm watching a live action film. Not to say that my imagination isn't engaged at all, but the degree to which it is engaged is much, 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 much like lower than it is when I'm dealing with animation, particularly stop motion, because stop motion sort of gets at the puppetry aspect of animation a lot more explicitly. These are puppets that are being manipulated. And with a puppet, I, as the viewer, have to project onto it. I have to imbue it with significance. Even though that's made easier by the artistry of the puppeteer, at the end of the day, I'm still very aware that this is an inanimate object. And so I have to, more than just suspend disbelief, I also have to like buy in and sort of, impose onto this thing,
right?
Yeah, exactly. I much more so than I would in a live action performance. Now, I'm not saying that this dynamic doesn't occur in whatever cinema you're viewing. I think it does, and I think that probably cinema and actors' performances are strongest when they can begin to leverage that kind of a dynamic. But it's never going to be as pure as it is with puppetry. I think that puppets are unique in their ability to sort of draw this out of us such that we can actually find ourselves being more struck by an image of the crucifixion happening to a puppet than happening to, an actor on screen with, whatever sorts of special effects and whatever else. So I think that's like, if I were to ask the question, like, why animate this? I think that's a big answer is, well, this narrative, this gospel narrative is too big to be contained by a live action depiction. And I think that this is a legitimate criticism that can be levied at a project like The Chosen, despite the fact that I really like it, but the more I've been watching it, and we've talked about this on the show, I'm beginning to have these doubts about the project of a live action depiction of the gospel in this way. But puppetry can like take all of that without reducing it or losing. It's not going to be like a perfect vessel, but I think that it's amazing how so many things in this film struck me in a way that was unexpected. One that comes to mind right now is the conversion of Matthew. Happens so quickly, so simply done. I mean, it's just presented really as it's presented in the gospel, as kind of matter of fact, kind of just come follow me, and he does. And in a live action portrayal, that's probably a hard sell, because you really have to find a way, to convey the gravity of this to the audience, the believability or whatever. Because the suspension of disbelief, you don't want people to have to really deal with that when you're watching a naturalistic live action film. But for whatever reason, in this film, I totally bought it. Without them having to do like a ton of backstory or work to like really get me there. There was like a shot of Matthew in an earlier parable, looking kind of guilty and dejected. But the puppet is able to like communicate this like very sort of directly and very simply, and I think it has a lot to do with my involvement as a viewer. Yeah.
Well, I really like when the animation where he like drops his bag on the table and just like sweeps the whole table with his arm. It's like you really feel like the physical weight of that moment. Which is
that's nice. The way. I mean, that's a very animated way to show the moment, as you're saying, James. Like I think a lot of times we in animation try to. It's not really reducing, but I'll maybe use the word reduce. We try to reduce a thought to like an iconic representation of it, something that captures that idea, and like dropping the money bag and sweeping it off the table. Maybe it would read as a little bit too big and theatrical in a live action film, but it captures what we're talking. It's a physicalization of the thought that's happening. And that kind of thing tends to really work in animation much better actually than the right kind of eye flick and the right kind of, catch in the throat.
Right.
It's like that's to forget that stuff in animation. We want something that physicalizes the internal in animation.
Yeah. Well, and it's a poetic synthesis of something, it's reducing in the same way that poetry reduces to like something like really core.
I guess distill is the complementary word, right? Yeah, we're distilling. So I would love to kind of grab a few of the ideas you guys were just throwing out. One is totally want to echo, Thomas, your thing of like this should be regular viewing. So if people listening have not seen it, you should see it. And show your kids for sure. I personally would give it my full endorsement. I think it was wonderful.